guys, it's Holly. So I've been a new-ish Star Wars fan for the last couple of months. In fact, it's actually been 2 years approximately now since I bought my first ever Lego Star Wars set, and I remember for years always wanting to get into it but never really knowing where to start. It sort of felt like this black hole that was just endless and really expensive and super easy to get sucked into, and boy was I correct, because it's addicting. Now, Lego Star Wars by far is one of Lego's most popular themes, and it is definitely one of the most intimidating, daunting, and by far probably as well the most expensive. And a lot of that does come down to licensing, but also, unlike a lot of themes, they've got a lot of products releasing every single year and have 2 of the most expensive Lego sets of all time under their belt. It's no wonder people are sort of scared to even delve into Lego Star Wars. Now, Lego Star Wars is currently one of my favorite themes. It's not something that I find myself buying too consistently. I feel like I sort of dabble between Marvel and Star Wars as to which one I buy more, which again, all really depends about the sets that are releasing at the time, as well as what I've currently got and what's really piquing my interest. I mean, both have shows releasing constantly, both have incredibly expensive worlds, and it's a lot of fun to collect. So I thought I would give you guys sort of a breakdown of things that I've learned over the last 2 years within collecting Lego Star Wars, how I try and budget myself as well and not let myself spend too much money, and sort of some of the sets that I recommend getting that I feel like are the best for most Star Wars fans, or even just sort of delve into it and go into specifics. And this whole video is basically just from the opinion of a beginner. I didn't have Star Wars as a kid. I didn't grow up with Lego Star Wars. So hopefully this helps someone who is like me, was really interested in getting into Lego Star Wars, maybe doesn't have the budget to buy a ton of Lego Star Wars stuff, or maybe even is just curious about what the theme actually has to offer and sort of the whole culture behind it. Now, I remember before I actually purchased my first ever Star Wars set, I got pretty far into the Lego Star Wars subreddit. It was incredibly interesting, and it was also really awesome to see a bunch of different people's collections, people discussing different sets. I know at the time, like, May the 4th was coming up. I'm pretty sure the 501st had like literally just been revealed as I really started to get into this stuff. So it was really interesting to sort of have a read and see what other fans were doing. And one thing I noticed really quickly is that there are some very distinct key types of Lego Star Wars fans. First up is the casual fan. It's the fan that sort of just buys a set every couple of months because it looks cool. You sort of have like the wide releases. Their collection is pretty hefty, but honestly, like, not super overwhelming. It's a nice, healthy level, and honestly what we should all strive to achieve, but I know we're not gonna get there. You've then got the UCS collectors who typically just buy all of the giant ships. They're not interested in majority of the playsets. They just want the big ticket items that are super highly detailed and look incredible and are really, really expensive, which again, I guess doesn't really matter too much if you're only buying like 2 sets a year. Probably cost the same for the most part. Next up are the hardcore fans, and if you're on YouTube, you're probably familiar with a lot of them. They're the really die-hard Star Wars fans, and chances are probably grew up with Lego Star Wars, grew up with the Clone Wars, and just grew up with a ton of Star Wars media and are very dedicated and just absolutely just love the product and love the theme, and probably have far more Lego Star Wars sets than you will ever own. Next up is the area that I've sort of been dabbling in recently, and that is the army builder tier. These are the ones who buy multiples of the exact same set and just have base plates upon base plates or drawers of just different clones and stormtroopers and armies. And honestly, don't get into this one. It's very addicting, and I highly don't recommend it, even though it is really satisfying to see them all laid out and does look really cool. It's a dangerous path, just be very wary of this. And then lastly, you have the mock makers. I mean, technically it's mock builders, but I quite liked the alliteration of mock makers here. And they're the ones who are combining sets, maybe modifying things, building upon things, creating entire universes, and potentially even giant displays in general. I feel like a lot of mocks outside the sort of like classic Lego themes pretty much all come from Star Wars. The one that I always think of as well is that like Tatooine one with like the flying Millennium Falcon and like the giant glowing blue strip. I don't know, that's just stuck in my mind for many, many years now. I love that mock. I wish I could have seen it. So if you're new to Lego Star Wars, the first thing that I would probably try and do is work out which of those sort of categories that you fit into. I mean, for me, this has personally sort of changed. I feel like I sort of dabble between casual fan and like hardcore fan, but we're not really quite at hardcore fan because like I haven't finished the Clone Wars, haven't watched Rebels. Like I've still got a lot of media to sort of like watch up on, but I'm also really into a lot of other Lego themes. So I don't want to get too into Lego Star Wars, but I feel like I'm slightly more than a casual fan. I've also recently recently really gotten into army building and made an entire video about that if you're interested in watching. So I feel like I'm sort of like dabbling in multiple areas in like this weird sort of combination. But if you're new to the theme, especially if you're an adult with disposable income, it's probably worth considering, like, are you more of a playset person? Like, do you want smaller ships and have more of them, or do you want to invest your money into the giant UCS and sort of master builder sets instead? It's probably better to pick one of the avenues instead of both. If you have the money for both, I mean, props to you, that's amazing, and I'm jealous. Or maybe you can have like a healthy balance of both, but you should probably sort of work out which type of sets that you're after more specifically. That way you're not going to spend as much of your money. The second thing that I learned, and it was very, very, very quick to me, was just don't look back at the back catalog of Lego Star Wars. I mean, getting into Lego in general, I can imagine especially these days, is very daunting to sort of go back and see what you missed. I know when I got out of my Lego Dark Ages, looking at the sets that I did miss out on, and even just thinking back to ones that I'd seen and always wanted but just never got, looking at the price of them years down the track, it's a lot. It's very discouraging and it's very upsetting because there are so many good sets in the back catalog. But with Star Wars specifically, unlike a lot of other themes, I wouldn't touch it with a 50-foot pole for the most part. Those sets are too expensive. It is ridiculous. The fact that the Death Star 2 can go for around $7,000 to $8,000 is ludicrous to me, let alone probably the cost of like the UCS Millennium Falcon, like what was the largest Lego set of all time at one point in several years. I'm scared of what that one's gonna be. I mean, even look at like the Rancor Pit or the Ewok Village, Jabba's Palace. I mean, there are so many sets that are just like really, really expensive. Don't get me wrong, there are a lot of lovely sets, but don't look back. You'll just make yourself sad and probably freak yourself out at like how to get all of this stuff. It's not worth it. I try and avoid buying retired sets as just like a general rule with Lego Star Wars. Other themes, if I find a good deal, but like I don't even go hunting for Star Wars because I know that it's just dangerous. Which then leads me to sort of my next point, and that is to try and stay ahead as much as possible. I mean, there are tons of Lego rumors and leaks and teasers and things out there these days. It's probably a really good idea to actually stay in tune with like just licensed themes, I feel like in general, especially when there's like new shows or TV shows, because it can sort of give you a hint as to what minifigures or what sets, if you are buying retired sets, you should get. It's also very helpful for just planning in general. With Star Wars, there are a lot of remakes, so if you're planning and you were desperate to buy a set that hasn't been remade in say like 5 years, and lo and behold there might be a rumor that an updated version's coming out, you should probably hold off and wait for that updated version because you're going to save yourself a lot of money by doing so. In my head at least, it's always better to buy something sooner rather than later, because if you do change your mind you can always resell it, and for the most part you should always get your money back, and if not you might make some on it too. Speaking of selling, as you've probably realized, Star Wars inflates a lot. Now, I wouldn't recommend doing this with every single set or every single Lego theme, for a matter of fact, and that is maybe with Star Wars especially, I would look into possibly keeping some boxes and manuals if you can. I mean, I recently have started throwing away a lot of instruction manuals, and I don't really keep that many boxes, besides Harry Potter and maybe like a D2C set and a couple of Star Wars sets, and the only reason I keep Star Wars is because of how much Star Wars inflates. If it's a set that I don't necessarily care about in the future, or maybe I want to sell it, keeping those boxes and manuals, especially with Star Wars sets, can help you get a better price when going to resell. I mean, either way, the set is going to sell for a lot of money. That's just sort of how Lego Star Wars works, but you can definitely make a bit extra with those boxes and manuals. Like, I don't even want to think about how much a Cloud City box would cost these days. That's a scary thought. Next up is something I only tested out and tried out quite recently, and that is getting display stands for my ships. It is something that I'd looked into quite a lot. I'd seen Solid Brick Studios sort of layout with a ton of like angled things, and all of the ships looked like they were flying. It was insane. Now, there's quite a lot of companies that do this. The two that really come to mind when I think about like Star Wars display stands are iDisplay and Wicked Brick. Both are UK based companies, and their shipping can be quite expensive because it is all done by weight. So if you're buying like a ton of stuff and it's really really heavy. It's gonna cost you an arm and leg to ship it. Luckily, I do have some of the Wicked Brick like display sort of ship stands here. They're very light, they're very small. I ordered a ton of stuff at once just to sort of compensate for that shipping cost. I personally really like them. I wish I got some more of like different sizes and like some angled ones especially. They also make ones that are like specific for certain ships. For example, like the Millennium Falcon. I know that Shy Time is My Time bought like the giant one for the UCS Falcon, which looks incredible. There's also some for the Razor Crest. I personally love these types of things and I do want to buy more of them just because I feel like I can fit a lot more on a shelf at once because all of the ships then are at different heights, not to mention the fact that I can actually open up my X-Wing into like flight mode if I was to get one and just sort of have everything look like it's flying, which is really cool without having to hang things from my ceiling because that honestly terrifies me. It's definitely not necessary, but I find that it added a lot to my Star Wars display. So if you are interested in any sort of stands like that, I will leave an affiliate link in the description. So any childhood Star Wars fans would really resonate with this next one, and that is just don't lose any set or any minifigure to the bin. Don't throw away your products. Don't go and donate them to a charity shop unless you're like desperate in need of space. I would much rather you keep it and like hopefully like it increases in that value. But more importantly, even if you just can't be bothered, you're probably better off selling it as a bulk lot. If you lose things to the bin, firstly, a lot of other collectors like myself who may be interested in the older things, then it's a lot harder and there's just less items available. But more importantly as well, you're not getting your value out of this stuff. Lego Star Wars, again, is expensive and holds a lot of value. So if you at least you sell it in a bulk lot, you can get some of that back. If you have a rough idea of what you've got, again, that will help you in a bulk lot. I understand not everyone wants to sit through and put in the time and effort and energy into individually listing things, but just please don't let anything get lost to the bin. It's too sad to let that happen. Just don't. Speaking of Star Wars sort of product range though, as you'll see, there's not too many prequels or sort of like Clone Wars and no Rebel sets at all. Most of the sets seem to revolve around the original trilogy and most recently as well, like the Mandalorian show. It's very successful. I mean, I'm not surprised that Lego is putting a lot of time, effort, and just products out for the Mandalorian, but there's definitely sort of like a very big balance bias here. That being said, there are some amazing sets in that range that I feel like are worth getting. Now, personally, I feel like the must-buys for Lego Star Wars, I mean, a majority of them are going to revolve around the original trilogy, just in case some people haven't caught up with the shows yet. The first one on the list is definitely the Rise of Skywalker playset-sized Millennium Falcon. This was, I'm pretty sure, like the third Lego Star Wars set I ever got, and it would have been the first if I just could force myself to spend that amount of money straight off the bat on a Star Wars set. I built this. I love it. I've always wanted a Lego Millennium Falcon. I remember when the one, I think it was like 2011 or 10 came out with Darth Vader and like a majority of like the original trilogy cast, and I really wanted it. It was insane. I loved it. This newer one, while it is sequels based and sequels themed and doesn't really have all of the characters that I'd want out of the Millennium Falcon, the model itself looks gorgeous and I love it. It's still on shelves for a reason. It's a spectacular model. It's beautiful. It looks spectacular, and especially in terms of just like iconic Star Wars things go, we all know the Falcon is that. I feel like this is a no-brainer for any Star Wars collector. The next one is a pretty recent one and I feel like is definitely for more sort of like beginner Star Wars fans or budget Star Wars fans, and that is the most recent Luke's X-Wing. I really like this set. I feel like for the sort of like budget version, that's the smaller scaled down version, this is still very big, very cool. The fact that it stands out and has like a cool flight mode is really sick, and I personally really enjoy it, and for the price, you really can't go wrong. Again, original trilogy, but it's Luke's X-Wing, like it's a staple. Same goes for the playset AT-AT. Not everyone's gonna have the budget for the UCS one. I love the UCS one, but that smaller one is definitely great. I've personally got it. I haven't built it. I really like the look of it. I think it's adorable. Again, probably can't go wrong with that unless you don't like Empire Strikes Back. If you're into displaying your sets more, I would also really recommend the Dagobah Jedi training. I love the look of this set. The fact that you've got the X-Wing wing looks incredible. You get Yoda, Luke, dirty R2-D2. It's just overall a really nice display piece, and I feel like perfectly captures sort of like the whole Dagobah training sequence and just Dagobah in general. I personally really like it, but if you don't like sort of those more like display sort of things and you want things for like mocks and stuff like that, you should probably pass on that one. Everything else is a set from the TV show, so I'll sort of speed run this list. First up is the Dark Trooper attack. I thought that set was really cool. Army builders as well, amazing set. The Razor Crest, I love that ship. I think it's gorgeous. It's perfect for any fan of The Mandalorian. And it's been discounted a couple of times now, so if you can find it discounted, highly recommend. The N1 Starfighter as well, that is coming out of June 2022. It looks super, super cool. I mean, the ship could be kind of dodgy, but at least for now, it looks great. The AAT, the cannon's a tiny bit long, but overall, the model design looks incredible. And again, the figure selection is fantastic. Great for Clone Wars fans. Also great for army building if you want a droid army like myself. I'm obsessed with battle droids. I love them. Speaking of army building, the 501st, I bought this set without even seeing like the Umbara arc. I mean, again, these were the troopers that were sort of involved with Order 66 pretty heavily, so I feel like it's pretty cool. The models as well are really great if you like army building, big win. Only issue is in Australia and a lot of like the OCE countries, it's incredibly hard to find. And lastly, for any prequels fans, of course, there is the Clone Command Station, which unfortunately only comes with 2 Phase 1 clone troopers, but it's a pretty neat set. The only thing with that one is that it's not a regular retail set, so it's a lot harder to get a hold of. At the end of the day, with any theme, like this is all going to come down to what piques your interest most. Are you a prequels fan? Are you a Clone Wars fan? Are you an everything Star Wars fan? Are you an original trilogy fan? If you've seen The Mandalorian, a lot of that will come down to that, but these are sets that I really personally enjoyed and I thought were awesome, so I wanted to recommend it, but definitely get the Falcon. It doesn't matter who you are, just get that Falcon, it's gorgeous. Now, if you have the budget or solely want to buy UCS sets, I feel like definitely the Falcon and the AT-AT are 2 of the must-haves. I mean, I can't imagine how expensive they're going to be once they retire. They are iconic. They are giant. They are definitely something that, like, if you had a dinner party, like, people would look at and be like, what is that? That looks awesome. That looks amazing. They look incredible in coffee tables and just in, like, regular sort of, like, living room environments. I hopefully will get one of those 2 sets one day. They look gorgeous, but they are expensive. Now, for people who don't have as much space to store a Lego collection, Lego does actually have a nice range of Lego Star Wars busts and helmets that are available. Personally, my favorite and the only one that I feel like is really worth the money is the Darth Vader one, just because, you know, it's Darth Vader, it's iconic. But if you don't have the space for a UCS set or just like a ton of play sets, I think those helmets are a pretty good option. Just any really like sort of like small 18 plus display set is going to be good if you are lacking in space. Now, I know I said don't go down this route, but I did also want to touch on retired sets because there are some that just don't look like they're going to be remade ever. Lego loves a good remake, but there are just some that they're not happening anytime soon. There are also some that have like just retired or that are smaller that I really think are awesome sets. Then again, there's stuff that probably will be remade sometime soon, so do keep that in mind. The first up on this list is the 2020 Luke's Land Speeder. Currently, it's not that expensive, so I guess all of those rules don't really apply. I personally really like this model, but it's a Luke's Land Speeder. Lego remakes them quite often. I feel like it's just a matter of a waiting game at this point, unless you absolutely love that set, which I feel like isn't really the attitude with Luke's Land Speeders in general. The next up is my first ever Star Wars set, and that is Duel on Mustafar. I love Revenge of the Sith. I think it's amazing. I saw this set and I just knew I had to have it. It is small, it is compact, it is beautiful, it's got Anakin, it's got Obi-Wan, it's fantastic. It's also, again, not that expensive because it's only just retired. If you're a big prequels fan, highly recommend getting that. Another set that I did end up buying, again, is Jabba's Palace. This has gone up even more since Boba's Palace came out. If you can find one for a good deal or you can stomach that cost, it looks amazing. I haven't built it yet, but I think by far it is the most gorgeous Jabba's Palace, and I don't think that they're gonna make a model like that again, purely down to the roof and having like some sort of controversy with apparently it looking like a mosque. I don't think it's gonna happen. Playset Republic gunships as well. I mean, we have the UCS one, which looks gorgeous. Personally, I think it takes up far too much space. It's a beautiful model, but I don't know who or how you would even display that set. It's insane. Playset gunships, there seems to be none in sight. It's almost been 10 years, which is very unfortunate. I was really hoping that they would do one this year. I'm gonna hold out and see if I can find one. I do keep looking though at that 2013 one specifically to try and find one, but at this point I feel like I'm better off waiting for a remake. If you're a big fan of Episode 1, 20th Anniversary Anakin's Pod Racer is also a really good set and isn't too expensive from what I've seen, which is really good. The Rancor pit, guaranteed if we're getting another Rancor, it's probably going to be brick built. I mean, just look at Lego Harry Potter and how they butchered Fluffy with like a brick built version, and even like the Basilisk. There's not going to be a special mold. Even for like the Wampa, they're both going to be brick built if they're ever remade again. And lastly, a big favorite, the Ewok Village. That set looks incredible. It looks gorgeous. I wish I could get it. I'm probably never gonna get it, but I love it, and hopefully LEGO will remake one of these. So I guess in summary, if you want a retired set and that set doesn't come from the original trilogy, it's probably worth looking into because it might not be remade as easily or as closely as you'd probably want to go and buy it. Now, like I said, I've gotten into army building recently. I made an entire video going like super in-depth on it, but my biggest piece of advice if you want to get into that sort of area of LEGO Star Wars is you really only need like 3 to 4 sets of like whatever you're trying to collect, because I feel like that gives you a big enough army to call it an army, but then you're also not spending like hundreds of dollars on the same set and the same pieces. Also, bulk sell the pieces. You're not going to need all of them unless you're like into mock building or like to part things out. I mean, that's what I would personally do. And lastly, of course, I want to talk about May the 4th, which is definitely the best time to buy LEGO Star Wars. You get a promo, you get double VIP points. It's just a fun time, but things do sell out pretty quickly, so you do have to be early. You also should probably plan your purchases out pretty far in advance to sort of consider May the 4th. I mean, I didn't buy many of the summer sets from last year, like there's still a couple that I'm missing. So I feel like if any time is the time to get them, it's gonna be May the 4th to try and get that promo, because those promos, even if they're bad, like they're valuable. You can either keep it and open it and enjoy it, or you can sell it and make some of your money back, and either way, I feel like you're winning. Also, if you're really into UCS sets, just get it in double VIP points. There's no point in buying it, I feel like, at any other time. It's not worth it. But that's sort of a general rundown of everything that I feel like you need to know getting into LEGO Star Wars, and everything that I've learned in the last 2 years of collecting LEGO Star Wars. I personally really enjoy the theme. It is a big black hole and it's a very, very, very expensive, but it's a very fun theme and has a lot of passion behind it, which is something that I just absolutely love seeing being a part of the LEGO community. They do some incredible stuff, and I love putting it all on display and just sort of seeing different parts of the universe all come together. It's so incredibly rewarding, and I'm really glad overall that I did get into this theme, even though it meant now I sort of have to divide up my LEGO spending between 3 themes instead of just 2. But let me know if you have any advice for LEGO collecting and LEGO Star Wars collecting, and when did you start getting into LEGO Star Wars yourself? And if you guys enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel down below. And until next time, I'll see you later.